Joining us now.
NZGT, what a wide variety of cars we've got here. We've got a Ford Capri with a V8 in it, 5.8 litre. An ex-V8 supercar being driven by Craig Corliss, that's in here. A few other Commodore V8s as well. There's some Porsches from the Bridgestone class, a lot of 2-litre turbo cars, but what about that very good looking Dodge Viper in there as well? Kevin Hyde's come out with his SS2000 BMW, couple of 4-wheel drive Subarus, the Anglia with the SR20, and don't forget Chris Coleman with the 1600 Prelude. He won the first race at Taupo a few weeks ago. Let's go to the commentator, Jamie McCarthy.
Thanks, Roger, as we have a look at the highlights for the opening race for the weekend for the NZGT class. Craig Corliss was the top qualifier. Next, John Bowe, Brad Jones Racing, V8 Supercar Falcon. Graham Barnes, the second qualifier in the Capri. You can go back to Stephen Calcott, Colin Parkin, Mike Thompson and Shane Moore, making up the top 6 down through turn number 1 at the Manfield Auto Course. While Graham Barnes was out in front in the Capri, after 2 laps, Craig Corliss applied the pressure to Colin Parkin. Corliss, unfortunately, just outbraking himself into Higgins and burying the ex-Brad Jones Racing V8 Falcon Supercar. That brought out the safety car, and from the restart it was Graham Barnes leading away from Colin Parkin. The 33 of Mike Thompson back there in the skyline. First race of the weekend for the NZGTs. Car 48, Kester Olive Krona battling there with car 6. That's Rod Pratt, the ex-NZ V8 Development Series Holden Commodore touring car. Down to the last lap, it was Parkin with the race lead. Barnes had a look up the inside into turn 1. Thompson back there in third, a little bit out of shape under brakes, and he looped up the number 33 Skyline out of a podium for race number 1. Corliss was trying to come back. He had this big moment into Splash. But down out of the final corner, Dunlop at Manfield, it would be Parkin as the victor in race number 1, narrowly from Graham Barnes on the line. And on to the results for race number 1 for the NZGTs at Manfield. Colin Parkin with the win from Graham Barnes, Stephen Calcott in third ahead of Shane Moore. Then it's Tony Satherley, Mike Thompson, AJ Austin and Kester Olive Krona. Outside of the top 8, Malcolm Glenn in the distinctive little 105E Anglia and Brett Stratton making up the top.
There going into the hairpin.
It's the Rock FM number 89 of Stephen Calcott trying to get an outside run on Olive Krona. They split Darren Greenslade in the little Starlet. That's a big speed difference off the Denny Holmes straight.
Yeah, and you can see Malcolm Glenn's struggling with his Anglia to keep up with these boys. Watch them on the back straight. They'll say bye-bye once they get their turbos wound up.
Turbocharged SR20 Nissan-powered Anglia. The next group, headed by the 41, Conrad Echtel. In the 5-litre V8 Commodore, we're on the last lap. Tony Oliver is a fair way up the track. Colin Parkin looking good for a podium here as Malcolm Glenn just about got into the back of one of the Porsches. Calcott went with him.
Craig Corliss is trying to find a gap without trying to find an accident.
Corliss down the inside of the Anglia. 2 Ford products, about 40 years apart. Oh, Glenn just ran a little bit wide. Corliss, though, he's got nowhere to go. Glenn gets into the front of the big Falcon. Ford meets Ford at Toyota.
He's obviously still having a few issues with getting to grips with that. Being in a V8 supercar and having adjustable brake bias, but that's twice now in 2 races, and he's gone up the inside on the slippery part of the circuit and locked the rears.
Yeah, Craig has admitted to really struggling to get to grips with this race car. It's only his 3rd meeting out, and there's a lot of adjustments in the cockpits of those supercars. It's AJ Austin battles there with Darren Greenslade, 4 position. Oh, we got one off. That's Chris Coleman in the first windows, number 28 Honda Prelude.
That's very much not like Chris Coleman. He was a race winner for NZGT at Taupo, and it's unusual to see him on the grass.
Very, very quick Honda Prelude, and it's not your everyday Prelude, it's turbocharged and supercharged. So problems there for Coleman. Oh, Malcolm Glenn, he's trailing the front splitter. You can see the smoke. I think he might have locked a brake at the same time there into Higgins. Oh, he's dropped the right side of the car off the track going down into the back straight. He is definitely struggling. This is Kevin Gurney. He pinches the left front at the hairpin as well as Tony Oliver goes by him. Puts him down a lap. This is the last lap. Oliver with a big lead. There's the next group of cars just going through the back of the shot through to the hairpin. Oliver's going to sneak up the inside. I think he's in cruise mode here. That was pretty easy.
Yeah, you only need to win a race by as little as you have to.
Not wanting to put too much stress on the race car on the last lap with a win in hand. Malcolm Glenn continuing to struggle here with that damage after that contact with the spun Craig Corliss.
Yeah, it just seems to be a bit of bodywork dragging on his front tyre rather than his suspension damage, so he's pretty keen to finish the race and get some points.
So out of Dunlop for the final time, the NZGT's race 2, Tony Oliver with his first win of the weekend in the number 78. Second will be a flying Colin Parkin, and in third, the V8 Commodore of Rod Pratt. So it's Oliver from Parkin, Rod Pratt third, Mike Thompson fourth, Conrad Echtel in fifth. Just outside of the top 8, we've got the likes of Tony Seth. Well, what a way to get into motorsport. Onto the grids for the handicap race, the finale for NZGT. Kevin Gurney is the first car away, and then we've got a selection of cars with different breaks and seconds back through the field. Going back through to some of the quicker cars, Rod Pratt starts 40 seconds down on the first car away. And the quickest cars for the weekend in the NZGT class start 60, 65 and 70 seconds down, with Colin Parkin starting from 24, a minute 10 down on the first car away. NZGT Race 3 brought to you by Miller Beer, New Balance, Malco, Post Haste and Main Freight. Gurney and Greenslade lead the field away. Final race for the NZGTs from Manfield. And Gavin, if you're off the front row, you want to run away and hide and try and keep out of the traffic chasing you down.
Absolutely. The great format of running a full handicap race like this is everybody gets to run good lap times for the first few laps until the field starts to concertina up.
And ideally, at the end of the race, you'd expect a blanket finish with 24 cars all hitting the start-finish line together.
Yeah, they'd be hitting if they were getting there all at the same time, for sure.
Yeah, I said ideally. Darren Greenslade is the early race leader in the number 74.
What tends to happen in these full handicap races is the very fastest cars don't get the opportunity to do the fastest lap times that they're capable of because of all the traffic.
Ross Calga away in this fantastic V10 Dodge Viper. Quite a rare car. This is one of the ACR spec cars. Runs a stereo and air conditioning. Wonderful sound. There's the 48.
Well, it may be an 8-litre V10 Viper, but an RX-7 still held its own coming down to turn 1.
You've got this thing with RX-7s, Gavin. That's Kestol of Kroner, of course. Colin Parkin was the final car away there in the 178. He's been a race winner already this weekend. Tony Oliver, of course, won race number 2. This is Malcolm Glenn. He's got the front of that car repaired. He's battling there with Craig Bartosh in the Capri. Chris Coleman just up ahead of them in the Honda Prelude. 32, Phil Dravitsky. There's Porsches and V8-powered Starlets, Commodores, Silvias, Imprezas, you name it. They're all out there for the NZGT class.
Everyone's circulating almost on their own at this stage in little groups, and it's going to take 3 or 4 laps before we actually see some real battles.
It was Rod Pratt looking to make a pass down into turn number 1 in the number 6 NZV8 Development Series Commodore. This is Warren Lauder, very distinctive little race car. V8 powered Toyota Starlet. There's not too many of those around. Go back, of course, to the CRC days with Roger Freeth, so it has got a little bit to live up to.
What is it with KE70 Starlets and not running wings at Manfield?
It's the CRC number 4 Porsche. That's Colin Caldwell. He's doing double duty this weekend as well, racing in the Bridgestone Porsche category. 3 wide down the back straight. Dravitsky on the inside, Caldwell on the outside. And here's your race leader, Darren Greenslade, in the little Starlet, and there's daylight back to this group. I think Lauder's the first one through. Dravitsky in there, Kevin Gurney, Caldwell. No sign of the really quick guys so far from the back, and they've only got 8 laps to do it in to try and get to the front of this field, the finale for the NZGTs from Manfield. 56 just coming into shot, going by Gurney. That's Greg Russell in the Porsche 944. Another busy driver this weekend. He's racing that car in Bridgestone Porsche as well. This is the 99 of Roger Conda, V8 powered Nissan Silvia.
And AJ Austin now starting to join one of the mid-packs.
So the faster guys are certainly starting to work their way forward. Have to wait and see if they're going to run out of laps. 48, of course. Seen him throughout the day. That's Kester Olive Krona.
And Brett Stratton in the back in the Sierra.
The RS 500 Ford Sierra. Beautiful race car, very, very quick. Again, going back to the heyday of the World Touring Car Championships and the Australian Touring Car Championships. The likes of Dick Johnson, Glenn Seaton, Peter Brock, when he turned his attentions to the Ford mark for the first time.
He also spent some time in an M3, did Peter Brock, of which Kevin Hyde's running in this race today.
Yeah, well, there's one of those out there as well. And it's not your everyday M3, it's got a different power plant underneath the hood of that race car. Darren Greenslade is still your race leader, but Phil Dravitsky is starting to reel him in. Let's look at the lap times. Dravitsky in the 119s, Greenslade in the 122, so he's picking up about 2.5 to 3 seconds a lap on the race leader. Here's Malcolm Glenn in the little 105E Anglia. Craig Bartosh in the Capri as Caldwell goes off track in the 8.
Yeah, it's a dangerous place to go off there. I've actually met the tyres there on an occasion.
Craig Corliss, well, he hasn't got too many opportunities to make passes because cars are too wide in front of him. There's 99, Roger Conda going through in that V8 powered Sylvia.
Craig Corliss is making good progress through the field as well.
Corliss lapping in the 113, so he's a full 6 to 8 seconds quicker than the race leader, but he's got lots of traffic to contend with here.
And he's going to go off the racing line here down at the hairpin. Let's see if he's got this thing under control.
Coming back after a couple of offs in the first 2 races of the weekend for the NZGT class. Chris Coleman just up ahead in the prelude. I think that's Shane Moore just to Corliss's right. Here comes the 33, Mike Thompson.
Colin Parkin's making big progress through the field at the moment, doing times in the low 12s.
So he's charging from the rear of this grid. He started 1 minute 10 down on the first car away. As Thompson goes by Kevin Gurney. Here's the battle for the lead. Dravitsky in the big 5-litre Commodore. Up against the little starlet of Darren Greenslade. And there's the change for the lead.
Yeah, Darren's had the benefit of having that clear circuit for the first 5 laps, and he's circulated and made good progress, but ultimately the fast cars are going to get him.
Malcolm Glenn in the 3rd position at the moment, chased by the NZV8 Commodore of Rod Pratt. Craig Bartosh, that's a pretty quick Capri. He's lapping in the 117s. Not too shabby for the English-built Ford.
You can actually see that Dravitsky hasn't really managed to get away from Greenslade there through the infield. It shows the complex nature of the S's and through splash of Manfield, and Greenslade's done a good job.
You don't realise how sharp that left-hander is through splash, and a lot of people get undone through there.
Yeah, you tend to get loaded up as you go through the right-hander, then as you make the transition to turn into the S's, often you can lose it through there.
So Phil Dravitsky is your race leader, car number 32. Darren Greenslade second. Here comes Craig Corliss. He's just worked his way onto the back straight.
Yeah, they've got that Falcon hooking up good. It looks kind of soft. It has a little bit of roll in some of the transitions, but it's obviously hooking up really well.
So the last lap forward out on the racetrack, 1 to go for Phil Dravitsky. The battle for the minors at the moment. Malcolm Glenn, Rod Pratt, Bartosh there in the Capri, and here's Craig Corliss. So Corliss has worked his way up into 6th. Pratt down the inside of Glenn. He picks up the 3rd position. Bartosh is going to try and follow him through in the Capri. Here comes Corliss, and again, not too many opportunities for different lines. He's got cars too wide in front of him through to splash.
Yeah, and this is where it gets hurt being a fast car. You get stuck into the S's in the midfield and come down to the hairpin, and there's almost nowhere to pass.
Rod Pratt running the inside line through the hairpin. Let's see what Corliss has got in a straight line. He can go to the outside. He should pick them up on the Denny Holmes straight. Watch the speed difference here.
He might even get Pratt as well. No.
Pratt, I think Pratt covered him on the outside under brakes into Higgins.
Well, you're allowed to change from one side of the track to the other once, so that was a fair move.
Just the one move there, but he's going to switch back to the inside. He crosses over, goes through to 3rd. Craig Corliss, Darren Greenslade's up next. He blasts down the inside of the little starlet. On the brakes down towards Dunlop, but onto the front straight. The race victory in race 3 for NZGT at Manfield's going to go to Phil Dravitsky, all the way from Waitara. Craig Corliss second, and Rod Pratt's going to hold on to 3rd, just on the line from Darren Greenslade and Craig Bartosh. So it's Dravitsky, Corliss, Pratt, Greenslade go back to Craig Bartos, Shane Moore, Malcolm Glenn and Colin Parkin. Outside of the top 8, Mike Thompson, Paul Bass, AJ Austin and Stephen Calcott.
Craig, you're coming to terms with that because you started second to last and came through for second.
Yeah, it was good to get up the front, and I really enjoyed it this time. I learned a lot this weekend, and the second meeting in the car, and so learning every time, and very pleasing to be able to get through there free.
Phil, pretty good, left at the last and came through with a win.
Yeah, it was totally unexpected. Didn't think I'd get there. I've had a lot of engine problems recently, and this was just the best thing that could happen.